Now, why does it not do the tweets anymore? Sure, I might as well go ahead and get in here. Summertime has come and passed. The innocent can never last. Wake me up when September ends. Or not. Honestly, unless I'm already getting close to being awake, don't wake me up. Ah. So, it is a night for... Damn, that's loud. It is a night for fairy tales. And hopefully, I'll be able to survive it. My shoulder has been killing me for about a week. I'm about to pop some pills for the shoulder. And you wouldn't think that, a storyteller or streamer would have shoulder issues. Well, guess what? I have to hold the book. I don't have a book stand like I do in my scene. And again, thank you, Oni, for the bits. Sneaking them in here before I even started. But if anyone hasn't heard yet, which will be kind of a surprise because it's showing up on everyone's page when they open it today, it is Subtober. And subs are up to 25% off if you do 1 month or 3 months, but 30% off if you sub for 6 months. That in itself is just absolutely crazy to me. Admittedly, it would be awesome if people did do the 6-month sub, but, I don't really expect it. Ugh. But I didn't realize that there's actually an option to do gift subs for multiple months. I'd never heard of that one before. And it's... Let me look into it real quick. go to gift subs here. Okay, where's the setting on that? I wouldn't do gift subs until the last week because that's when things really go crazy. Let's see, if you gift to a specific person... Okay. If you do a specific person, you can actually say how many months it is. But again, don't do any gift subbing until, well... You don't get a discount on the gift subs until the last week of September. Which is kind of a sneaky thing, because you can sub yourself and get a discount, but subbing other people, you don't get a discount until the end of the month. Which kind of screws over everyone who's doing subathons this first week. Because, you know, it's helping Twitch more than the streamer. Especially since we don't get but maybe half of the sub anyway. So, if you really want to stick it to Twitch, no. But if you're going to sub to a streamer, just yourself, anytime this month. But if you want to gift subs, wait until the last week. I may try to do something for it. I don't know. I've never done a subathon. And honestly, I'm not really sure how I could reward anything for it. There's... What is a more bully? What the heck?
Power off.
You can switch off all you want, speaker. But anyway, everyone doing subathons this week and this weekend. It's just bad timing. I'm not saying don't support people, because, you know, support people because it's awesome to support people. But if you really want to get them the way that it should be, do the gift subbing the last week of September. And while we're thinking about gifts, did you know that there's a book out there? And if you didn't know, you haven't been paying attention to my streams. Okay, where are my ads? There it is. Okay. As I'm going to promote the hell out of myself because I can. I did not catch the Morlo, whatever it is. But anyway, you see this wonderful book over here? Yeah, down there. It is for sale. I have autographed copies. I have just the regular art copies. And I have the just regular cover copy of this there too. And they are all available online. If you do an autographed one, it will actually come from me, of course. And I will write you a note inside the book. So, if you really want to get an autographed copy with, or if you're giving it as a gift, just add a message to the sale and let me know, and I will write it for you. And I'm going to go ahead and clip this because I have nothing else to do. Ugh. Trying to get comfortable. Okay. Clipping that took longer than I expected. Huh, I did do the right one. Cool. Okay. Okay. So we are already after the usual start time, so I guess I should switch over. Let me hop over. Boop. Hi. Where's my chat window? Okay, there's the chat window. It was so late loading. Okay, I am lurking a little bit more. Okay. Uh, this session's gonna be on an hour. It's cool. Okay. Let me get the book open because the first story in it is actually from Africa. And let's hope my computer doesn't crash. When Haro's out there tossing money around, cool, cool. Thank you for the sub to Sam. Okay, there's a set of hiccup. Okay, there we go. I can see myself again. Yay! Okay, story time. That'd be fun to just do the videos that I'm narrating people's lives. But no. Okay, hopefully my book will be blocking the fans, so it would be nice to get that microphone that's on my Twitch on my throne list, but I'm not holding out for it. So till then, my headset will do just fine. Oh, I wonder if I had the USB headset, if that would be any better instead of just a regular stereo plug. I don't know. Oh well. At least if it was the USB one, it would come with drivers, and maybe I'd be able to adjust it more. As opposed to this one just being recognized as Realtek as opposed to Razer. Anyway, I'm going to try to keep an eye on the timer so I can at least hopefully see when ads are going to pop up. Are ads playing already? No, I got I set up a 3-minute warning for the ads. Yeah. So ads are going to start in a minute or two. Why? Why are they starting so damn early? I've only been live for. Hold on, now it's counting down to when I can run ads? I don't know. I don't know. Anyway. I haven't tested soundboards yet. Sound alerts. Alerts of sound. See that? Alright then. I guess they're working. I don't have a sound alert. Oh well. Anyway, maybe I'll get to the story. How long is the story? The story is 6.5 pages. No biggie. The Rover of the Plain from the Orange Fairy Book. A long way off, near the sea coast of the east of Africa, there dwelt, once upon a time, a man and his wife. They had 2 children, a son and a daughter, whom they loved very much, and, like parents in other countries, they often talked of the fine marriages the young people would make some day. Out there, both boys and girls marry early, and very soon, it seemed to the mother, a message was sent by a rich man on the other side of the great hills, offering a fat herd of oxen in exchange for the girl. Everyone in the house and in the village rejoiced, and the maiden was dispatched to her new home. When all was quiet again, the father said to his son, "Now that we own such a splendid troop of oxen, you had better hasten and get yourself a wife, lest some illness should overtake them. Already we have seen in the villages round about 1 or 2 damsels whose parents would gladly part with them for less than half of this herd. Therefore tell us which you like best, and we will buy her for you." Hopefully as in a dowry. Slow trans chats. But the son answered, "Not so. The maidens I have seen do not please me. If indeed I must marry, let me travel and find a wife for myself." "It shall be as you wish," said the parents. "But if by and by trouble should come of it, it will be your fault, not ours." The youth, however, did not listen, and bidding his father and mother farewell, set out on his search. Far, far away he wandered, over mountains and across rivers, till he reached a village where the people were quite different than those of his own race. He glanced about them and noticed that the girls were fair to look upon, and they pounded maize or stewed something that smelt very nice in earthen pots, especially if you were hot and tired. And when one of the maidens turned around and offered the stranger some dinner, he made up his mind that he would wed her and nobody else. So he sent a message to her parents asking their leave to take her for his wife, and they came next day to bring their answer. "We will give you our daughter," they said, "if you can pay a good price for her. Never was there so hard-working a girl, and how shall we do without her, we cannot tell. No, still, no doubt your father and mother will come themselves and bring the price." "No, I have the price with me," replied the young man, laying down a handful of gold pieces. "Here it is. Take it." The old couple's eyes glittered greedily. but custom forbade them to touch the price before all was arranged. At least, they said after a moment's pause, we may expect them to fetch your wife to her new home. No, they are not used to traveling, answered the bridegroom. Let the ceremony be performed without delay, and we will set forth at once. It is a long journey. Then the parents called the girl, who was lying in the sun outside the hut, and, in the presence of all the village, a goat was killed. A sacred dance took place, and a blessing was said over the heads of the young people. After that, the bride was led aside by her father, whose duty it was to bestow her upon some parting advice as to her conduct in the married life. Be good to your husband's parents, he added, and always do the will of your husband. And the girl nodded her head obediently. Next it was the mother's turn, as was the custom of the tribe. She spoke to her daughter. You will choose which of your sisters shall go with you to cut your wood and carry your water. I do not want any of them, answered she. They are of no use. They will drop the wood and spill the water. Then will you have any of the other children? There are enough to spare, asked the mother again. But the bride said quickly, I will have none of them. You must give me your buffalo, the rover of the plain, and he alone shall serve us. What folly you talk, cried the parents. Give you our buffalo, the rover of the plain? Why, you know that our life depends on him. Here he is well fed and lies on soft grass. But how can you tell what will befall him in another country? The food may be bad. He will die of hunger. And if he dies, we die also. No, no, said the bride. I can look after him as well as you. Get him ready, for the sun is sinking, and it is time we set forth. So she went away and put together a small pot filled with healing herbs, a horn that she used in tending sick people, a large knife, and a calabash containing deer fat. And, hiding these about her, she took leave of her father and mother and started across the mountains by the side of her husband. But the young man did not see the buffalo that followed them, which he had left his home to be the servant of his wife. No one ever knew how the news spread to the kraal that the young man was coming back, bringing a wife with him. But somehow or another, when the two entered the village, every man and woman was standing in the road, uttering shouts of welcome. You are not dead to us after all, cried they, and have found your wife to liking, though you would have none of our girls. Well, well, you have chosen your own path. If ill comes of it, beware lest you grumble. The next day the husband took his wife into the fields and showed her which were his, and which belonged to his mother. The girl listened carefully to all he told her, and walking him back with her to the hut, but to close the door, she stopped and said, I have dropped my necklace of beads in the field, and I must go and look for it. But in truth she had done nothing of the sort, and it was only an excuse to go and seek the buffalo. The beast was crouching under a tree when she came up, and snorted with pleasure at the sight of her. You can roam about this field, and this, she said, for they belong to my husband, and that is his wood where you may hide yourself. But the other fields are his mother's, so beware lest you touch them. I will beware, answered the buffalo, and patted his head, and the girl left him. Oh, how much better a servant was he than the little girls and the bride had refused to bring with her. If she wanted water, she only had to cross the patch of maize behind the hut and seek out the place where the buffalo lay hidden, and put down her pail beside him. Then she would sit at her ease while he went to the lake and brought the bucket back brimming over. If she wanted wood, she would break the branches off the trees and lay them at her feet. All the villagers watched her return laden and said to each other, "Surely the girls of her country are stronger than our girls, for none of them could cut so quickly or carry so much." But then nobody knew that she had a buffalo for a servant. Only all this time she never gave the poor buffalo anything to eat, because she had just one dish, out of which she and her husband ate. While in her old home, there was a dish put aside expressly for the rover of the plain. The buffalo bore it as long as he could, but one day, when his mistress bade him to go to the lake and fetch the water, his knees almost gave way from hunger. He kept silent, however, till the evening, when he said to his mistress, "I'm nearly starved. I've not touched food once since I came here. I can work no more."
"Alas," she answered, "what can I do? I only have one dish in the house. You will have to steal some beans from the fields. Here, take a few here and a few there. Be sure not to take too many from one place, or the owner may notice it."
Now, the buffalo had always lived an honest life, but his mistress did not feed him. He must go get food for himself. So that night, when the village was all asleep, he came out of the wood and ate a few beans here and a few there, as his mistress had bidden him to. And when at last his hunger was satisfied, he crept back into his lair. But a buffalo is not a fairy. And the next morning, when the women arrived to work in the fields, they stood still with astonishment and said to each other,
"Just look at this! The savage beast has been destroying our crops, and we can see traces of his feet."
and they hurried to their homes to tell their tale. In the evening, the girl crept out to the buffalo's hiding place and said to him,
"They perceived what happened, of course, so tonight you had better keep your supper further off."
and the buffalo nodded his head and followed her counsel. But in the next morning, when these women who also went to work, the traces of hooves were plainly to be seen. They hastened to tell their husbands and begged them to bring their guns and to watch for the robber. It happened that the stranger girl's husband was the best marksman in all the village, and he hid himself behind the trunk of a tree and waited. The buffalo, thinking that they would probably make a search for him in the fields he had laid waste the evening before, returned to the bean patch belonging to his mistress. The young man saw him coming with amazement. "Why, it's a buffalo!" he cried. "I've never beheld one in this country before." And raising his gun, he aimed just behind the ear. Buffalo gave a leap into the air and then fell dead. "That was a good shot," said the young man, and he ran to the village to tell them that the thief was punished. When he entered his hut, he found his wife, who had somehow heard the news, twisting herself to and fro and shedding tears. "Are you ill?" he asked, and she answered,
"Yes, I have pains all over my body."
but she was not ill at all, only very unhappy at the death of the buffalo which had served her so well. Her husband felt anxious and sent for the medicine man, though she pretended to listen to him. She threw off his medicine out the door, and directly he had gone away. With the first rays of light, the whole village was awake, and the women set forth armed with baskets, and the men with knives in order to cut up the buffalo. It is tasty meat. Only the girl remained in her hut, and after a while she too went to join them, groaning and weeping as she walked along. "What are you doing here?" asked the husband when he saw her. "If you are ill, you had better stay home."
"Oh, I could not stay alone in the village,"
said she, and her mother-in-law left her work to come and scold her, and to tell her that she would kill herself if such foolish things. But the girl would not listen, and sat down and looked on. When they had divided the buffalo's flesh, and each woman had the family portion in her basket, the stranger wife got up and said,
"Let me have the head."
"You could never carry anything so heavy," answered the men, "and you are ill besides."
"You do not know how strong I am,"
answered she, and at last they gave it to her. She did not walk to the village with the others, but lingered behind, and instead of entering her hut, she slipped into the little shed where the pots for cooking and storing maize were kept. Then she laid down the buffalo's head and sat beside it. Her husband came to seek her, and begged her to leave the shed and go to bed. And she must be tired out. But the girl would not stir, neither would she attend to the words of her mother-in-law.
"I wish you would leave me alone," she answered. "It is impossible to sleep if someone is always coming in."
And she turned her back on them, and would not even eat the food they had brought. So they went away, and the young man soon stretched himself out on his mat, but his wife's odd conduct made him anxious, and he would lay awake all night listening. When all was still, the girl made a fire and boiled some water in a pot. As soon as it was quite hot, she took out the medicine that she had brought from home, and then, taking the buffalo's head, she made incisions with her little knife behind the ear, and close to the temple where the shot had struck him. Next she applied the horn to the spot, and blew with all her force till at length the blood began to move. After that she spread some of the deer fat out of the calabash all over the wound, which she held into the steam of the hot water. At last of all she sang out in a low voice a dirge over the rover of the plain. As she chanted the final words, the head moved, and the limbs came back. The buffalo began to feel alive again, and shook his horns, and stood up, and stretched himself. Unluckily, it was just at that moment that the husband said to himself, "I wonder if she is crying still. What is the matter with her? Perhaps I had better go and see." And he got up, and calling her by her name, went out to the shed.
"Go away, I don't want you,"
she cried angrily. But it was too late. The buffalo had fallen to the ground, dead, and with a wound in his head as before. The young man, who, unlike most of his tribe, was afraid of his wife, returned to his bed without having seen anything, but wondering very much what she could be doing all this time. After waiting a few minutes, she began her task over again, and at the end the buffalo stood on his feet as before. But just as the girl was rejoicing that her work was completed, in came the husband once more to see what his wife was doing, and this time he sat himself down in the hut, and said that he wished to watch whatever she was doing. Then the girl took up the pitcher and all her other things and left the shed, trying for a third time to bring the buffalo back to life. She was too late. The dawn was already breaking, and the head fell to the ground, dead and corrupt as it was before. The girl entered the hut where her husband and his mother were getting ready to go out.
I want to go down to the lake and bathe,
she said. But you could never walk so far, answered they. You are so tired, as if it's that you can hardly stand. However, in spite of their warnings, the girl left the hut in the direction of the lake. Very soon she came back weeping and sobbed out.
I met someone in the village who lives in my country. He told me that my mother is very ill, very, very ill. And if I do not go to her at once, she will be sent forth in the direction of the mountains.
I missed a line.
If I do not go to her at once, she will be dead before I arrive. I will return as soon as I can, and for now, farewell.
And she set forth in the direction of the mountains. But, this story was not true. She knew nothing about her mother, only she wanted an excuse to go home and tell her family that their prophecies had come true and that the buffalo was dead. Balancing her basket on her head, she walked along, and directly she had left the village behind her, she broke out into the song of the rover of the plain. And at last, at the end of the day, she came to the group of huts where her parents lived. Her friends all ran to meet her, and weeping, she told them that the buffalo was dead. This sad news spread like lightning through the country, and the people flocked from far and near to bewail the loss of the beast who had been their pride. If you had only listened to us, they cried, it would be alive now. But you refused all the little girls we offered you, and would have nothing but the buffalo. And remember that the medicine man said, if the buffalo dies, you die also. So they bewailed their fate, one to the other, and for a while they did not perceive that the girl's husband was sitting in their midst, leaning his gun against the tree. Then one man, turning, beheld him, and bowed mockingly. Hail, murderer! Hail! You have slain us all! The young man stared, not knowing what he meant, and answered wonderingly. I shot a buffalo. Is that why you call me a murderer? A buffalo, yes, but the servant of your wife. It was he who carried the wood and drew the water. Did you not know? No, I did not know it, replied the husband in surprise. Why did no one tell me? Of course I should not have shot him. Well, he is dead, answered they, and we must die too. At this the girl took a cup in which some poisonous herbs had been crushed, and holding it in her hand she wailed, Oh, my father, rover of the plain! And then, drinking a deep draught of it, fell back dead. One by one, her parents and her sisters drank also and died, singing a dirge in the memory of the buffalo. The girl's husband looked on in horror and returned sadly home across the mountain, and entering his hut, threw himself on the ground. At first, he was too tired to speak, but at length he raised his head and told all the story to his father and mother, who sat watching him. When he had finished, they shook their heads and said, "Now you see that we spoke no idle words when we told you that the ill would come of your marriage. We offered you a good and hard-working wife, and you would have none of her. And it is not only your wife you have lost, but your fortune also. For who will give you back your money if they are all dead?" "Oh, it is true, oh my father," answered the young man. But in his heart he thought more of the loss of his wife than of the money he would have given for her. Dramatic pause. "I shot a buffalo and the whole village killed themselves! What the hell, people?" And now for these messages. Oh, God. Oh, I had to do that. That was just. Oh, God. That was. Um, I haven't actually drunk anything. I probably should. No, I haven't drunk anything intoxicating. I'm just drinking. What am I drinking? I'm drinking Gatorade Zero and a bit of uh, Gamersups Mango. So yeah. Oh, excuse me. "I only shot a buffalo. The entire village poisoned themselves." What the hell? I mean, he could have looted the village. I mean, they're all dead. He could have gotten his gold back. And probably more so. Not that I encourage robbing the dead, do I? I mean, they poisoned themselves, so cannibalism would be counted out of the question because you just get the poison yourself. This depends on the poison, because most poisons can be cooked out. Okay, I'm not going to endorse cannibalism too much on this stream. Ouch. What? Why am I moving around? Okay, that's small. I did the model block. So if I lock my model where it is, well, so do the changes. So go chibi and see what happens. What change? Ah! It changed. Cool. Doo-be-doo. Okay, do have switches lined up. Cool. I'm gonna give myself itches because chibi ear scritches. Come on, give me scritches. Give me scritches. Hey, where's my model? For some reason, much. I can barely see the book from up here. Switch. That's general. Okay. I think I got the chibi thing set to. Let's head for 5 minutes. Okay. Oh, have you read the Troll Wolf? I have not. Sounder still working? I want to hear this one. God, I hate it when this feels like there's something moving under my skin on my arm. Um, do. Okay. Okay, let me check to see how long the timer is. Yeah, I got a minute and a half left of the chibi model. Boom, 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 bah, bah, bah. Switch back. Oh, need a back switch. Oh, ouch. Okay. Oh, been going almost an hour and I've only got one story read. What's wrong with me? Oh, yeah. I'm having fun reading. That's what. Oh, I got the Elmer Star. Cool. Okay, next story. Open the book. Aha, cool. I'm going to try to remind myself to change the name in this one because I like the sound of Ash Lad better than Cinder Lad. Because honestly, it's all in translation. And this says it's from the Red Fairy book, so it's going to be a translation done by Andrew and Leonora Lang, which, I base my books off of. I based it off their translations. But really, Cinderlad and Ashlad are kind of interchangeable because ashes are cinders. In case you didn't know. I'm going to wait. Oh, and it did not come back full size. That's what I was wanting. You back where I am. Okay. Fix that. Boom! And I'm big again. Honestly, man, mushrooms. Eat one side, you get bigger, the other side, you get smaller. I don't condone eating mushrooms. Oh, well, maybe the ones that give shiny midges. The magic mushroom on a pizza. Okay. Let me get out of that topic. Ooh, and let me get into another story. Just my fan because I should really put the chair in my image instead of the background. Our next story of wonder and amazements. Or just our next fairy tale. Is the Seven Folds, as found in the Red Fairy book. There once upon a time was a couple of poor folks who lived in a wretched hut, far away from everyone else, in a wood. They only just managed to live from hand to mouth, and had great difficulty in doing even so much as that. But they had 3 sons, and the youngest of them was called Ashlad, for he did nothing but lie and poke among the ashes. One day the eldest lad said that he would go out to earn his living. He soon got leave to do that, and set out on his way into the wide world. He walked on and on for a whole day, and when night was beginning to fall, he came to a royal palace. The king was standing outside the steps and asked where he was going. "Oh, I'm going about seeking a place, my father," said the youth. "Wilt thou serve me and watch my 7 foals?" said the king. "If thou canst watch them for the whole day, and tell me at night what they eat and drink, thou shalt have the princess and half my kingdom. But if thou canst not, I will cut 3 red stripes on thy back." Okay. The youth thought that it was an easy work to watch the foals, and that he would do very well. Clearly, he has never watched foals before. Next morning, when the day was beginning to dawn, the king's master of the horse led out the 7 foals, and they ran away, and the youth after them, just as it chanced, over a hill and dale, through the woods and bogs. When the youth had run thus for a long time, he began to get tired, and when he had held a little longer, he was heartily weary of watching them all. And at the same moment he came to a cleft in the rock, where an old woman was sitting spinning with her distaff in her hand. As soon as she caught sight of the youth, who was running after the foals till the perspiration streamed down his face, she cried, come hither, my handsome son, and let me comb your hair for you." The lad was willing enough, and he sat down in the cleft of the rock beside the old hag, and laid his head on her knees. And she combed his hair all day while he lay there, and gave himself up to idleness. When evening was drawing near, the youth wanted to go. "I may just as well go straight home again," he said, "for it is no use to go to the king's palace."
Wait till it is dusk, said the old hag, and then the king's foals will pass by this place again, and you can run home with them, and no one will ever know you've been lying here all day instead of watching the foals, like you're supposed to.
So when they came, she gave the lad a bottle of water and a bit of moss, and told him to show these to the king and say, "This is what the 7 foals ate and drank." "Hast thou watched faithfully as well as the whole day long?" said the king, whose accent changed. When the lad came into his presence in the evening, "Yes, that I have," said the youth. "Then you are able to tell me what it is that my 7 foals eat and drink," said the king. He's a stable master, that. So the youth produced the bottle of water and the bit of moss which he had gotten from the old woman, saying, "Here you see their meat, and here you see their drink." Then the king knew how his watching had been done, and fell into such a rage that he ordered the people to chase the youth back to his own home at once. But first they were to cut 3 red stripes in his back and rub salt into them. Ow. Friends. When the youth reached home, again, you can imagine the state that he was in. He had gone out to seek a place, he said, but never would he do such a thing again. The next day, the second son that he would go out now into the world and seek his fortune. His mother and father said, "No!" and bade him to look at his brother's back. But the youth would not give up his design, and stuck to it. And after a long time he got his leave to go, and set forth on his way. When he had walked all day, he too came to the king's palace, and the king was standing outside on the steps, and asked him where he was going. And when the youth replied that he was going about in search of a place, the king said that he might enter into his service and watch his 7 foals. Then the king promised him the same punishment and the same reward that he had offered his brother. The youth at once consented to this and entered the king's service, for he thought he could easily watch the foals and inform the king what they ate and drank. In the grey light of dawn, the master of the horse let out the 7 foals, and off they went again over hill and dale, and off went the lad after them. But all went with him as it had gone with his brother. When he had run after the foals for a long time, he was hot and tired. He passed by a cleft in the rock where an old woman was sitting spinning with a distaff, and she called to him. Come hither, my handsome son, and let me comb your hair." She's got a thing about hair. The youth liked this thought, and he let the foals run where they chose, and seated himself in the cleft of the rock by the side of the old hag. So there he sat with his head on her lap, taking his ease all livelong day. The foals came back in the evening, and then he too got a bit of moss and a bottle of water from the old hag, which things he was to show to the king. But when the king asked the youth Canst thou tell me what my 7 foals ate and drink? And the youth showed him the bit of moss and the bottle of water, and said, Yes, here you may behold their meat, and here their drink. The king once more became wroth, and commanded that 3 red stripes be cut into the lad's back, and salt should be strewn upon them, and that he should be instantly chased back to his own house. So, when the youth got home again, he too related all that happened to him, and he too said that he had gone out in search of a place once, but that never would he do it again. Now, on the 3rd day, Ashlad, wanted to set out. He had a fancy to try to watch the 7 foals for himself, and he said, The other 2s laughed at him and mocked him, as usual. What? When all went so well for us, do you suppose that you are going to succeed? You look like succeeding. You who have never done anything else but lie and poke about among the ashes, they said. Yes, I will go too, said Ashlad, for I have taken it into my head. The 2 brothers laughed at him, and his father and mother begged him not to go. But oh, to no purpose, and Ashlad set out on his way. So when he had walked the whole day, he too came to the king's palace, and the darkness began to fall. There stood the king outside on the steps, and asked whether he was to be bound. I'm walking about in search of a place, Ashlad said. From whence do you come, then? Inquired the king, for by this time he wanted to know a little bit more about the men before he would take any of them into his service. Job interviews. So Ashlad told him whence he came, and that he was the brother of the 2 who had watched the 7 foals for the king, and then he inquired if he might be allowed to try to watch them on the following day. Ooh, shame on them, said the king, for it enraged him to even think of them. If thou art brother to those 2, thou art not good for much. I have had enough of such fellows. But, as I have come here, you might as well give me leave to make an attempt. Oh, very well. If thou art absolutely determined to have thy back flayed, thou mayst have thine own way if thou wilt. I would much rather have the princess, said Ashland. Next morning, in the grey light of dawn, the master of the horse let out the 7 foals again, and off they set over hill and dale, through woods and bogs, and off went Ashlad after them. When he had run thus for a long time, he too came to the cleft in the rock. There the old hag was once more sitting spinning from her distaff, and she cried to Cinderlad, come hither, my handsome son, and let me comb your hair for you. Come to me, then, come to me, said Ashlad, as he passed by jumping and running, and keeping tight hold of one of the foal's tails. When he had got safely past the cleft in the rock, the youngest foal said, Get on my back, for we still have a long way to go. So the lad did this, and thus they journeyed on a long, long way. Dost thou see anything now? Said the fool. No, said Ashlad. So they journeyed onwards a good bit further. Dost thou see anything now? Asked the fool. Oh, no, said the Ashlad. When they had gone thus for a long long way, the fool again asked,
Dost thou see anything now?
Yes, now I see something that is white, said Ashlad. It looks just like a trunk of a great thick birch tree.
Yes, that is where we are to go in,
said the fool. When they got to the trunk, the eldest fool broke it down on one side, and then they saw a door where the trunk had been standing. And inside this was a small room. And in the room there was scarcely anything but a small fireplace, a couple of benches, but behind the door hung a great rusty sword and a small pitcher. Ouch.
Canst thou wield that sword?
asked the fool. Ashlad tried, but could not do it, and so he had this draught from the pitcher, and then one more, and after that still another, and then was able to wield the sword with perfect ease.
Good,
said the fool.
And now thou must take the sword away with thee, and with it shalt cut off the heads of all 7 of us on thy wedding day. And then we shall become princes again as we were before. For we are brothers of the princess whom thou oughtst to have when thou canst tell the king what we eat and drink. But there is a mighty troll who has cast a spell over us. Once thou hast cut off our heads, thou must make the greatest care to lay each at the tail of the body to which it belonged. And then the spell which the troll cast upon us shall lose all of its power.
Ashlad promised to do this, and then they went on further. When they had travelled a long, long way, the fool said,
Dost thou see anything?
No, said Ashlad. Then they went on a great distance further.
And now?
inquired the fool.
Seest thou nothing now?
Alas, no, said Cinderlad. So they travelled onwards again, after many and many a mile over hill and dale.
Now then,
said the fool,
dost thou see anything now? Are we there yet? No. Are we there yet? No. Are we there yet?
Yes, said Ashlad. Now I see something like a bluish streak, far, far away.
That is a river, said the fool, and we have come to cross it.
There was a long, handsome bridge over the river, and when they had got to the other side of it, they again travelled a long, long way. And then once more the fool inquired of Ashlad if he saw anything. And this time he saw something that looked black, far, far away, and was rather like a church tower.
Yes, said the fool, we shall go into that.
When the fool was got into the churchyard, they turned into men and looked like the sons of a king, and their clothes were so magnificent that they shone with splendor. And they went into the church and received bread and wine from the priest, who was standing before the altar. And Ashlad went in too, but when the priest had laid his hands on the princes and read the blessing, they went out of the church again, and Cinderlad went out too. But he took with him a flask of wine and some consecrated bread. No sooner had the 7 princes come out of the churchyard that they became fools again. And Cinderlad got upon the back of the youngest, and they returned by the way which they had come. Only they went much, much faster.
Are we there yet? No. Are we there yet? No.
First they went over the bridge, and then past the trunk of the birch tree, then past the old hag who sat in the cleft in the rock spinning. And they went by so fast that Ashlad could not hear what the old hag screeched after him, but just heard enough to understand that she was terribly enraged. It was all but dark when they got back to the king at nightfall, and he himself was standing in the courtyard awaiting them. "Hast thou watched well and faithfully the whole day?" said the king to Ashlad. "I have done my best," replied Ashlad. "Then thou canst tell me what my 7 foals eat and drink?" asked the king. So Ashlad pulled out the consecrated bread and the flask of wine and showed them to the king. "Here ye may behold their meat, and hear their drink." "Yes, diligently and faithfully thou hast watched," said the king, "and thou shalt have the princess and half the kingdom." So all was made ready for the wedding, and the king said that it was to be so stately and magnificent that everyone should hear of it, and everyone inquire about it. But when they sat down to the marriage feast, the bridegroom arose and went down to the stable, for he said that he had forgotten something, which he must go and look to. When he got there, he did what the foals had bid him, and cut off the heads of all 7. First the eldest, then the second, and so on, according to their age. And he was extremely careful to lay each head at the tail of the foal which it belonged. And when that was done, all the foals became princes. And the king was so joyful that he kissed Ashlad and clapped him on the back, and his bride was still more delighted with him than she had been before. "Half my kingdom is thine already," said the king, "and the other half shall be thine after my death, for my sons can get countries and kingdoms for themselves now that they've become princes again. Therefore, as all may well believe, there was joyment and merriment at the wedding." Oh, why is it so? When princes and princesses are cursed animals, the only way to break the curse is through their death. I mean, the Frog Prince, well, Frog King, Frog Prince, whichever you want to call him, Hans's master, he didn't, get his head cut off. He just got flung into a wall where we're supposed to die. But the White Cats, Puss in Boots, all the other ones, beheading is the only way to break the curse. The horses having to have their heads cut off and put on their butts. That's just weird. Shit. Okay, Matthew's reading stories. Usually doesn't do Fridays. Weird. Desk is already on. Oh, she's modifying her ship. Cool. I really wish I could get that game. I can't afford games. Most of my budget goes to books. But considering I can usually get anywhere close to 10 or 20 books for the price of one video game anymore, I'm gonna stick with books, unfortunately. Okay. This one. How long is this one? 12 pages. I will try to do 2 more stories. I'm going to do the story of a gazelle, then I'm going to do the brown bear of Norway. Norwegian brown bear. Ah. This next story is a little bit longer, so I'm going to go ahead and run ads now. Just to get them out of the way, because I really hate getting ads interrupting stories. So we'll see you in a couple minutes. For those of you who aren't subbed. Of course, now that the ads are running, I can say, yeah, if you're not subbed, now would be the perfect time to get a sub. Because it is Subtober. Yeah, whatever. I've only got 6 subs right now. Oh, cool. I didn't know I could so off. Ah, damn. Why did I not know this? I never look at the stream manager on Twitch. Pop up like that. I mean, I'm usually looking at the book anyway, but still. It's got the viewer count, follower count, bit rate, how many subs I have, how many sub points I have, pre-roll, got a minute and a half left of ads. What is Sarina? What the hell is a Sarina? If that's not a female-bodied Pokemon, I'm gonna be pissed. I don't know Pokemon. I'd say the community game and Pokemon Go were pretty much the only Pokemon games I've played since the card game. That's been damn, 2 decades. Fuck. I would say watch my language, but I can't read lips. And neither can my stream. Haha. This one. I told a joke. Give me a drum snare. Ching. Come on. Do it. Do it. Do the roar. There we go. Okay, 20 seconds left of that. Ugh. Ow. 10, 9, 8. Actually, me counting down doesn't any good since I'm out of sync. Welcome back. Oh, I got it. Cool. I want to see what this is. What is a Sarina? Oh, hello. Wood. Okay. uh, message was shiny, but I don't get shinies. Anyway, leaping into our next story. The story of a gazelle from the Violet Fairy Book. Once upon a time, there lived a man who wasted all his money. Come out here. And grew so poor that his only food was a few grains of corn, while he scratched like a fowl out of a dust heap. One day he was scratching as usual among the dust heap in the street, hoping to find something for breakfast, when his eye fell upon a small silver coin, called an eighth, which he greedily snatched up. Now I can have a proper meal, thought he, and after drinking some water at a well, he lay down and slept so long that it was sunrise before he woke again. Then he jumped up and returned to the dust heap, for who knows, said to himself, whether I may not have some good luck again. As he was walking down the road, he saw a man coming towards him, carrying a cage made of twigs. "Hi, you fellow!" he cried out. What have you got inside there?" "Gazelles," said the man. "Bring them here, for I should like to see them." As he spoke, some men who were standing by again began to laugh, saying, "The man with the cage, you had better take care how you bargain with him, for he has nothing at all except what he picks up out of the dust heap. And if he can't feed himself, will he be able to feed a gazelle?" But the man with the cage made answer, "Since I started from my home in the country, 50 people at least have called me to show me the gazelles. And was there one among them who cared to buy? It's a custom for trader and merchandise to be summoned hither and thither, but who knows where I may find a buyer?" And he took up his cage and went towards the scratcher of dust heaps, and the men went with him. "What do you ask for your gazelle?" said the beggar. "Will you let me have one for an eighth?" And the man with the cage took out a gazelle and held it out, saying, "Take this one, master." Are gazelles not deer? And the beggar took it and carried it to the dust heap, where he scratched carefully till he found a few grains of corn, which he divided with his gazelle. This he did night and morning, till 5 days went by. As he slept, the gazelle woke him, saying, "Master." And the man answered, "How is it that I see a wonder?" "What wonder?" said the gazelle. "Why, that you, a gazelle, should be able to speak, for from the beginning my father and mother and all the people in the world have never been told me of a talking gazelle." "Never mind that," said the gazelle, "but listen to what I say. First I took you for my master. Second, you gave me all you had in the world. I cannot run away from you, but give me, I pray you, leave to go every morning and seek food for myself, and every evening I will come back to you. What you find in the dust heaps is not enough for both of us." "Go then," answered the master, and the gazelle went. When the sun had set, the gazelle came back, and the poor man was very glad, and they lay down and slept side by side. In the morning it said to him, "I'm going away to feed." And the man replied, "Go on, my son." And he felt very lonely without his gazelle, and set out sooner than usual for the dust heap where he generally found most corn. And glad he was when the evening came and he could return home. As he lay on the grass chewing some tobacco, the gazelle trotted up. "Good evening, my master. How have you fared all day? I've been resting in the shade in a place with the sweet grass when I am hungry, and fresh water when I am thirsty, and a soft breeze to fan me in the heat. It is far away in the forest, and no one knows of it but me, and tomorrow I shall go again." So for 5 days the gazelle set out at daybreak for this cool spot, but on the 5th day it came to a place where the grass was bitter, and it did not like it, and scratched, hoping to tear away the bad blades, but instead it saw something lying in the earth, which turned out to be a diamond. Very large and very bright.
"Oh ho!"
Said the gazelle to itself.
"Perhaps now I can do something for my master who brought me with all the money he had. But I must be careful or they will say he has stolen it. I'd better take it myself to some great rich man and see what it will do for me."
Directly the gazelle had come to this conclusion, it picked up the diamond in its mouth and went on and on and on through the forest, but found no place where a rich man was likely to dwell. For 2 days it ran, from dawn to dark, till the last early one morning it caught sight of a large town, which gave it a fresh courage. The people were standing about in the streets doing their marketing when the gazelle bounded past, the diamond flashing as it ran. They called after it, but it took no notice till it reached the palace where the Sultan was sitting, enjoying the cool air. And the gazelle galloped up to him and laid the diamond at his feet. The Sultan looked first at the diamond, then next to the gazelle, back to the diamond, and again to the gazelle. And he ordered his attendants to bring cushions and a carpet, that the gazelle might rest itself after its long journey. And he likewise ordered milk to be brought, and rice, that it might eat and drink and be refreshed. And when the gazelle was rested, the Sultan said to it, "Give me the news you have come with." And the gazelle answered,
"I am come with this diamond, which is a pledge from my master, the Sultan Dryri. He has heard you have a daughter, and sends this as a small token, and begs you will give him to her for wife."
And the Sultan said, "I am content. The wife is his wife, the family is his family, the slave is his slave. Let him come to me empty-handed. I am content." When the Sultan had ended, the gazelle rose and said,
"Farewell, master. I go back to our town, and in 8 days, or it be in 11 days, we shall arrive as your guests."
And the Sultan answered, "So let it be." All this time the poor man far away had been mourning and weeping for his gazelle, which he thought had run away from him forever. And when it came at the door, he rushed to embrace it with such joy that he would not allow it a chance to speak.
"Be still, master, and don't cry,"
said the gazelle at last.
"Let us sleep now, and in the morning when I go, follow me."
With the first ray of dawn they got up and went to the forest, and on the 5th day, as they were resting near a stream, the gazelle gave its master a sound beating, and then bade him stay where he was till he returned. And the gazelle ran off, and about 10 o'clock it came near the Sultan's palace, where the road was all lined with soldiers who were there to do honor to the Sultan Darai. And directly they caught sight of the gazelle in the distance, one of the soldiers ran on and said, "Sultan Darai is coming! I have seen the gazelle!" Then the Sultan rose up and called his whole court to follow him, and they went out to meet the gazelle, who, bounding up to him, gave him greeting. The Sultan answered politely and inquired where it had left its master, whom it had promised to bring back.
"Alas,"
replied the gazelle, "Ouch!
"he is lying in the forest under a bush, lest a passing stranger might see him."
The Sultan, upon hearing what happened to his future son-in-law, turned his horse and rode to the palace, and bade the groom to harness the best horse in the stable, and order a woman to slave to bring him a bag of clothes, such as a man might want, out of the chest. And he chose out a tunic and a turban and a sash for the waist, and fetched himself a gold-hilted sword and a dagger and a pair of sandals and a sweet stick of sweet-smelling wood. "Now," he said to Gazelle, "take these things with the soldiers to the Sultan, that he might be able to come." And the gazelle answered,
Can I take those soldiers to go and put my master to shame where he lies naked? I am enough by myself, my lord.
How will you be enough, asked the Sultan, to manage this horse and all these clothes?
Oh, that is easily done, replied the gazelle. Fasten the horse to my neck and tie the clothes to the back of the horse. And be sure they are fixed firmly, as I will go faster than he does.
Everything was carried out as the gazelle had ordered, and when all was ready, it said to the Sultan,
Farewell, my lord, I'm going.
Farewell, gazelle, answered the Sultan. When shall we see you again?
Tomorrow, about 5.
Replied the gazelle, and giving a tug to the horse's reins, they set off at a gallop. The Sultan watched them till they were out of sight. Then he said to his attendants, That gazelle comes from gentle hands, from the house of a sultan, and that is what makes it so different from other gazelles. And in the eyes of the sultan, the gazelle became a person of consequence. Meanwhile, the gazelle ran on until it came to the place where its master was seated, and his heart laughed when he saw the gazelle. And the gazelle said to him,
Get up, my master, and bathe in the stream.
And when the man bathed, it said again,
Now rub yourself well with earth, and rub your teeth well with sand, and make them bright and shining.
And when this was done, it said,
The sun has gone down behind the hills.
The sun has gone down behind the hills. Is it time for us to go? So it went and brought the clothes from the back of the horse, and the man put them on, and was well pleased.
Master,
Said the gazelle when the man was ready,
you're sure that where we are going you keep silent, except for giving greetings and thanking for news? Leave all the talking to me. I have provided you with a wife, and have made her presents of clothes and turbans and rare and precious things, so it is needless for you to speak.
Very good, I will be silent, replied the man as he mounted the horse. You have given all these. It is you who are the master, and I who am the slave, and I will obey you in all things. So they went their way, and they went and went till the gazelle saw in the distance the palace of the sultan. Then it said,
Master, that is the house we are going to, and you are not a poor man any longer. And your name is new.
What is my name, then, father? asked the man.
Sultan Darai,
Said the gazelle. Very soon some soldiers came to meet them, while others ran off to tell the sultan of their approach. And the sultan set off at once, and the viziers and the emirs and the judges and the rich men of the city all followed him. Directly the gazelle saw them coming, and said to its master,
your father-in-law is coming to meet you, and that is he in the middle, wearing a mantle of sky blue. Get off your horse and go to meet them.
And Sultan Darai leapt from his horse, and so did the other sultan. And they gave their hands to another, and kissed each other, and went together into the palace. The next morning the gazelle went into the rooms of the sultan, and said to him,
My lord, we want you to marry us to your wife, for the soul of Sultan Darai is eager.
The wife was ready, so call the priest, answered he. And when the ceremony was over, a cannon was fired, and music was played, and yada yada. And of course, within the palace there was feasting.
Master,
Said the gazelle the following morning,
I'm setting out on a journey and shall not be back for 7 days, and perhaps not then. But be careful not to leave the house till I come.
And the master answered, I will not leave the house. And it went to the Sultan of the country and said to him,
My lord Sultan Darai has sent me to his town to get his house in order. It will take me 7 days, and if I'm not back in 7 days, he will not leave the palace till I return.
Very good, said the Sultan. And it went through the forest and the wilderness till it arrived at a town full of fine houses. At the end of the chief road was a great house, exceedingly beautiful, built of sapphire, turquoise, and marble.
That,
thought the gazelle,
is the house for my master. If any people are there, I'll go up in courage and go and look for the people who are in it. If any people are there, for in this town I have yet to see any people. If I die, I die. If I live, I live. Here can I think of no plan. If so anything is to kill me, it will kill me.
Then it knocked twice at the door and cried,
Open!
But no one answered. And it cried again, and a voice replied, Who are you that are crying open? And the gazelle said,
It is I, great mistress, your grandchild.
If you are my grandchild, answered the voice, go back whence you came. Don't come here and die, and bring me to my death as well.
Open, mistress, I entreat. I have something to say.
Grandchild, replied she, I fear to put your life in danger and my own too.
Oh, mistress, my life will not be lost, nor yours either. Open, I pray you.
So she opened the door. What does it use where you come from, my grandson? asked she.
Great lady, where I come from it is well, and with you it is well.
Ah, my son, here it is not well at all. If you seek a way to die, or you have not yet seen death, then is today the day for you to know what dying is.
If I am to know it, I shall know it,
replied the gazelle.
But tell me, who is the lord of this house?
And she said, Oh, father, in this house is much wealth and much people and much food and many horses. And the lord of it is all an exceedingly great and wonderful snake.
Oh,
cried the gazelle when he heard this.
Tell me how I can get the snake to kill him.
My son, replied the old woman, do not say words like these. You risk both our lives. He has put me here all by myself, and I have to cook his food. When the great snake is coming, there springs up a wind and blows the dust around. This goes on till the great snake glides into the courtyard and calls for his dinner, which must always be ready for him in those big pots. He eats till he's had enough, and then he drinks a whole tankful of water. After that he goes away. Every second day he comes, when the sun is over the house. He has 7 heads. How then can you be a match for him, my son?
Mind your own business, mother,
replied the gazelle.
and don't mind other people's. Has the snake a sword?
He has a sword, and a sharp one too. It cuts like a dash of lightning.
Give it to me, mother,
said the gazelle, and she unhooked the sword from the wall as she was bidden. It must be quick, she said, for he may be here at any moment. Hark! Is that not the wind rising? Yes, come! They were silent, but the old woman peeped from behind a curtain, and saw the snake busy at the pots where she had placed ready for him the food in the courtyard. And after he had done eating and drinking, he came to the door. You old body! He cried. What smell is that I smell inside that is not the smell of every day? Oh, master, answered she, I'm alone, as I always am. But today, after many days, I've sprinkled fresh scent all over me, and that is what you smell. What else would it be, master? At this time, the gazelle had been standing close to the door, holding the sword in one of its front paws. And as the snake put in one of his heads through the hole that he made so he could get in and out comfortably, it cut it off so clean that the snake really did not feel it. The second blow was not quite so straight, for the snake said to himself, Who is that trying to scratch me? And he stretched out his third head to see, but no sooner was the neck through the hole than the head went rolling off like the rest. When 6 of his heads had gone, the snake lashed his tail in such a fury that the gazelle and the old woman could not see each other for the amount of dust that he made. Then the gazelle said to him, I have climbed all sorts of trees, but you can't climb. And as the 7th head came darting through, it went rolling to join the rest. Then the sword fell rattling to the ground, for the gazelle had fainted. The old woman shrieked with delight when she saw her enemy was dead, and ran to bring water to the gazelle and fanned it and put it where the wind could blow on it, till it grew better and gave a sneeze. And the heart of the old woman was glad, and she gave it more water, till by and by the gazelle got up. Show me this house, it said, from beginning to end, from top to bottom, from inside to out. So she arose and showed the gazelle rooms full of gold and precious things, and other rooms full of slaves. They're all yours, good and slaves, she said. But the gazelle answered, You must keep all safe till I call my master. For 2 days it lay and rested in the house, and fed on milk and rice, and on the 3rd day it bade the old woman farewell and started back to its master. And when he heard that the gazelle was at the door, he felt like a man who had found the time when all his prayers were granted, and he rose and kissed it, and saying, My father, you have been a long time. You have left sorrow with me. I cannot eat, I cannot drink, I cannot laugh. My heart felt no smile of anything because of thinking of you. And the gazelle answered, I am well, and where I come from it is well, and I wish that after 4 days you would take your wife and go home. And he said, It is for you to speak. Where you go, I will follow. Then I shall go to your father-in-law and tell him the news. Go, my son. So the gazelle went to the father-in-law and said, I am sent by my master to come and tell you that after 4 days he will go away with his wife to his own home. Must he really go so quickly? We have not yet sat much together, and Sultan Darai, nor have we talked much together, and have yet ridden out together, and we have not eaten together, yet it is 14 days since he came. But the gazelle replied, My lord, you cannot help it, for he wishes to go home, and nothing will stop him. Very well, said the Sultan, and he called all the people who were in the town, and commanded that on the day his daughter left the palace, ladies and guards were to attend on her way out. And at the end of 4 days, a great company of ladies and slaves and horses went forth to escort the wife of Sultan Darai to her new home. They rode all the way and all day, and when the sun sank behind the hills, they rested, and ate of the food the gazelle gave them. and lay down to sleep. And they journeyed on for many days, and they all, nobles and slaves, loved the gazelle with a great love, more than they loved the Sultan Darai. At last one day signs of houses appeared, far, far off, and those who saw cried out, "Gazelle!" And it answered,
"Ah, mistresses, that is a house of Sultan Darai."
At this news the women rejoiced much, and the slaves rejoiced much, and in the space of 2 hours they came to the gates, and the gazelle bade them all stay behind, and went on to the house with Sultan Darai. When the old woman saw them coming through the courtyard, she jumped and shouted for joy, and as the gazelle drew near, she seized it in her arms and kissed it. The gazelle did not like this, and said to her,
"Old woman, leave me alone. The one to be carried is my master, and the one to be kissed is my master."
And she answered,
"Forgive me, my son. I did not know this was our master."
and she threw open the doors so that the master might see everything that the rooms and storehouses contained. Sultan Darai looked about him, and at length said, "Unfasten those horses that are tied up, and let loose those people that are bound, and let some sweep and spread some of the beds, and some cook and draw water, and come out and receive the mistress." And when the Sultana and her ladies and all her slaves entered the house, and saw such rich stuffs it hung with, and the beautiful rice that was prepared for them to eat, they cried,
"Ah, you gazelle, we have seen great houses, and we have seen people. We have heard of things, but this house, and you, such you are, we have never seen or heard of."
After a few days, the ladies said they wished to go home again. The gazelle begged them hard to stay, but finding they would not, it brought them many gifts, and some of the ladies and some of the slaves, and they all thought the gazelle greater 1,000 times than its master, Sultan Darai. The gazelle and its master remained in the house many weeks, and one day it said to the old woman,
"I came with my master to this place, and I have done many things for my master, good things. Until today he has never once asked me,
'Oh, my gazelle, why did you get this house? Who is the owner of it? And this town, where are there no people in it?'
all good things I have done for the master, and he has not one day done me any good thing. But people say, if you want to do anyone good, don't do him good only, do him evil also." "And there will be a peace between you. So, mother, I want to see the favors I have done to my master, that he may do me the like."
"Good," replied the old woman, and they went to bed. In the morning, when light came, the gazelle was sick to its stomach, and feverish, and its legs ached, and it said,
"Mother!"
and she answered,
"Yeah, my son."
and it said,
"Go and tell my master upstairs the gazelle is very ill."
"Very good, my son. And if he should ask what is the matter, what am I to say?"
"Tell him all my body aches badly, and I have no single part without pain."
The old woman went upstairs, and she found the mistress and the master sitting on the couch of marble spread with soft cushions. And they asked her, "Well, old woman, what do you want?"
"To tell the master his gazelle is ill,"
she said. "What is the matter?" asked the wife.
"All his body pains, and there is no other pain without."
"Well, what can I do? Make some gruel of red mullet and give it to him." But his wife stared and said,
"Oh, master, do you tell her to make the gazelle gruel out of red mullet, which a horse would not eat? Master is not well."
But he answered, "Oh, you're mad. Rice is only kept for people."
Master, this is not like a gazelle. It is the apple of your eye. If sand has got into it, that it would trouble you.
Wife, your tongue is too long. And he left the room. The old woman saw that she had spoken vainly, and went back to weeping to the gazelle. And when the gazelle saw her, it said,
Mother, what is it? And why do you cry? If it be good, give me the answer. If it be bad, give me the answer.
But still the old woman would not speak, and the gazelle prayed her to let it know what the words of its master were. And at last she said,
I went upstairs and found the mistress and the master sitting on a couch, and he asked me what I wanted, and I told him that you, his slave, were ill. And his wife asked what was to be the matter, and I told her that there was not a part of your body without pain. And the master told me to make some red millet and make you a gruel, but the mistress said, Ah, master, the gazelle is the apple of your eye. You have no child, the gazelle is like your child, and so the gazelle is not one to be done evil to you. This is a gazelle in form, but not a gazelle in heart. He is all better in things like a gentleman, but he who may, but he who he may.
she was going to say,
And he answered her, Silly chatterer, your words are many. I know its price. I bought it for an eighth. What loss will it be to me?
Oy. The gazelle kept silent for a few moments, and then it said,
The elders said, one that does good like a mother. And I have done him good, and I have got that the elders said. But go up again to the master and tell him the gazelle is very ill, and it has not drunk the gruel of red millet.
So the old woman returned and found the master and the mistress drinking coffee. And when he heard that the gazelle said, he cried, Hold your peace, old woman, and stay your feet, and close your eyes, and stop your ears with wax. And if the gazelle bids you come to me, say your legs are bent and you cannot walk. And if it begs you to listen, say your ears are stopped with wax. And if it wishes to talk, reply your tongue has got the hook in it. The heart of the old woman wept as she heard such words, because she saw that when the gazelle first came to the town, it was ready to sell its life to buy wealth for its master. Then it happened to get both life and wealth, but now it had no honor with its master. And tears sprung likewise in the eyes of the Sultan's wife, and she said,
I am sorry for you, my husband, that you should deal so wickedly with that gazelle.
But he only answered, Old woman, pay no heed to the talk of the mistress. Tell it to perish out of the way. I cannot sleep, I cannot eat, I cannot drink, or worry of that gazelle. Shall a creature that I bought for an eighth trouble me from morning till night? Not so, old woman. The old woman went downstairs, and there lay the gazelle, blood flowing from its nostrils. And she took it in her arms and said,
My son, the good you did is lost. There remains only patience.
And it said,
Mother, I shall die, for my soul is full of anger and bitterness. My face is ashamed. I should have done good to my master, and that he should repay me with evil.
It paused for a moment, and then went on.
Mother, of the good matter of this house, what do I eat? I might have every day half a full basin, and my master would be any poorer. But did not the elders say, he that does good like a mother?
And it said,
Go and tell my master that the gazelle is nearer death than life.
So she went, and spoke as the gazelle had bidden her. But he answered, I have told you to trouble me no more. But his wife's heart was sore, and she said to him,
Master, what has the gazelle done to you? How has he failed you? The things you do to him are not good, and you will draw on yourself the hatred of the people. For the gazelle is loved by all, by small and great, by women and men. Ah, my husband, I thought you had great wisdom, and you have not even a little?
But he answered, You are mad, my wife. The old woman stayed no longer, and went back to the gazelle, and followed secretly by the mistress, who called a maidservant and bade her take some milk and rice, and cook it for the gazelle.
Take also this cloth, she said, to cover it with, and this pillow for its head. And if the gazelle wants more, let it ask me, and not its master. And if it will, I will send it in a litter to my father, and he will nurse it till it is well.
And the nursemaid did as her servant mistress bade her, and said to the mistress had told her to say, but the gazelle made no answer, but turned over on its side, and died quietly. When the news spread abroad, there was much weeping among the people, and Sultan Darai arose in wrath and cried, You weep for that gazelle as if you wept for me. And after all, what is it but a gazelle that I bought for an eighth? But his wife answered,
Master, we looked upon that gazelle as we looked upon you. It was the gazelle who came to ask me of my father. It was the gazelle who brought me from my father, and I was given in charge to the gazelle by my father.
And when the people heard her, they lifted up their voices and spoke, We never saw you, we saw the gazelle. It was the gazelle who met with the trouble here. It was the gazelle who met with the rest here. And then, when such one departs from the world, we weep for ourselves. We do not weep for the gazelle. And they said, Furthermore, the gazelle did you much good, and if anyone says he could have done more for you, he is a liar. Therefore, to us who have done you no good, what treatment will you give? The gazelle has died from bitterness of soul, and you have ordered your slaves to throw it into a well. Ah, leave us alone, and we may weep. But Sultan Darai would not heed their words, and the dead gazelle was thrown into the well. When the mistress heard of it, she sent 3 slaves mounted on donkeys with a letter to her father, the Sultan. And when the Sultan had read the letter, he bowed his head and wept, like a man who had lost his mother. And he commanded horses to be saddled, and called the governor and the judges and all the rich men. He said, Come with me now. Let us go and bury it. Night and day they traveled till the Sultan came to the well where the gazelle had been thrown. And it was a large well, built round a rock, with room for many people. And the Sultan entered, and the judges and the rich men followed him. And when he saw the gazelle lying there, he wept afresh, and took it in his arms and carried it away. When the 3 slaves went and told their mistress what the Sultan had done, and how all the people were weeping, she answered,
I too have eaten no food, neither have I drunk the water, since the day the gazelle died. I have not spoken, and I have not laughed.
The Sultan took the gazelle and buried it, and ordered the people to wear mourning for it. And so there was great mourning throughout the city. Now, after days of mourning were at an end, the wife was sleeping at her husband's side, And in her sleep she dreamed that she was once more in her father's house. And when she woke up, it was no dream. And the man dreamed that he was on the dust heap, scratching. And when he woke, behold, that also was no dream, but the truth. So, that was a very different version of Puss in Boots. And it is after 11 o'clock. So I ask you, those who may or may not be here, do I try to read one more story, as the hour is late? I try to keep the streams to 2 hours, but I also try to keep the streams to 4 stories. Do I read a 4th story, or do I wait until next week for the next one? The next story, of course, being The Brown Bear of Norway. Though I have not been sitting in my chair, I have actually been kneeling on the floor, and my legs are getting a bit tired. I would start a poll, but I don't know how long it would take it. Delete. Let me go ahead and switch scenes here. I'm out of Ultra Balls. Hell. Oh well. But anyway, who should we raid? Kind of switch to raid Natsu. Or I could raid Dusk, even though I'm already lurking in there. Somewhat. What do you say, people? Anyone? Anyone? Try? Oh, yeah. Let's read Matsu. So, follower message. Oh, got something there. Why am I... Kel, what are you doing? Why are my raid messages not popping? Oh well. Let's go ahead and raid Dusk. Sounds like Matsu's wanted to end. So, I'm not even going to raid message, so. Thank you all for coming in and listening to me ramble aimlessly and tell stories. I'll go ahead and start next week with Brown Bear from our way. And I will complain a little bit more about stream elements being a pain in the ass. So, I may play games tomorrow, I don't know. Or Sunday, one or the other. I'll see you around. Have a good night, evening, morning, afternoon, whichever you may be. Later, all.